You're with Julian on the Brown Note. Why is Putin trying to blame Ukraine for the concert hall massacre? This is relating to Steve Rosenberg's piece in the BBC, which I thought was really good. It began with hints in now it's no holds barred accusations. The Russian authorities are aggressively pushing the line that Ukraine and the West were behind last month's Crocus City concert hall massacre outside Moscow, which left 145 people dead. The Islamic State group quickly claimed responsibility for the attack, but soon after the suspected gunmen were detained, Putin hinted at a Ukrainian connection at the weekend. Russian state TV broadcast interrogation videos of the four suspects, all citizens of Tajikistan. One of the men said on camera that the post-attack plan had been to head towards Kiev. Their words must be taken with extreme caution. During a court appearance, they showed signs of torture. So why would Putin be trying to push this line when the four men were all from the same Islamic part of the world? The other side of it is that Russia's been fighting Islamists far longer than the West. In fact, the West has been actively promoting Islamists in opposition to Russia in places like Afghanistan. Everyone knows about Operation Cyclone, I guess, in Afghanistan, 10 years of American support for the Mujahideen in Afghanistan, who went on to become the Taliban, and even back as far as the early 70s, promoting Islamist groups when it suited our interests to attack Russia. So Russia's been fighting Islamists all the way through. They have also suffered numerous terrorist attacks from Islamists, not from Ukrainians, but from Islamists. There was a famous school holdout. There's a war in Chechnya, and there have been numerous attacks. It's clearly obvious who did it. So this guy's sort of gone through what are the possible reasons, which I thought was interesting. One of them was don't change your enemy. So at the moment, Russia has the West and Ukraine as the de facto enemy of the state, the ideological oppressor, and so on. So don't change the enemy. This doesn't really make much sense. I mean, why? Like the way that geopolitics is set up, particularly with Russia in friendly terms with a number of Islamic nations. Important distinction, those two words, such as Syria and Iran, where they've been on the same side for many years, to the detriment of Syria and Iran. So I don't know that you can't have more than one enemy here. Because, look at America. They can have more than one enemy when it comes to Islamists and Russia. So I can understand from a sort of cartoon level simplicity, divert attention. We'll come back to that. An escalation pretext is probably the most troubling, that they would use it to then escalate the war in Ukraine and maybe, further the war in Europe. I've posted so many videos on the Ukraine war. I don't think that's ever been an issue, really. But we do keep pushing NATO further and further closer to the borders of Russia. And whether that will end up being an issue, it is in Ukraine. But whether it will bleed over into, the countries that are newly joining NATO, I don't think there's virtually anyone left on Russia's border that hasn't, to be honest. But Russia's been fighting Islamists on its border, and particularly like the ex-Soviet countries, the Stans, the Kazakhstans, and Afghanistans, and like the amount of Islamic or Islamist countries that share a border with Russia to the south. And the West acts like we've got this huge problem because we don't share borders with any Islamic countries, but Russia does. So escalation, I don't know that they need to escalate it. It's pretty bloody escalated as it is. I think it's more, what is the end game? Is it going to be that Russia just completely annexes the whole Crimea side of Ukraine? I would say that's the most likely option. Taking Ukraine entirely would seem a lot more years of war. I don't know that that is the ultimate goal here. For me, there is one major reason why Putin is trying to blame Ukraine and the West for the terrorist attack in Moscow. They screwed up. They screwed up massively because they were warned by America and by their besties, Iran, that there was a serious imminent threat of a terrorist attack all the way in the weeks and days leading up to it happening. And it happened. So it looks like they dropped the ball. And it's a way of deflecting everything. Because if it is, and just is, an Islamist terror attack from an Islamic organization that abhors the Western or Russian intervention in their lands and the Russian war in Afghanistan, then that they were warned. And just like America was warned by a lot of people that there was an impending attack coming just before 9/11, and including 6 months up to 9/11, and they were warned over and over again that there was this incoming attack. And also, like Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel, they were warned that there was an attack coming, and they did nothing. And the response to that attack has obviously been dramatic. But for Putin, I guess there's a worry that the level of control and power he has in Russia could be weakened by the fact that they were warned that there was going to be a specifically Islamic attack just days before and all the way leading up to it, and they didn't stop it. So it's a deflection, it dissipates the information, it dissipates the, no one in the West will ever believe that Ukraine were involved. And why? Because it just doesn't suit their aim. It just does nothing for the Ukrainian situation at all. But it sows the seeds of confusion at home. It's not going to get any traction in Western media at all. No one in Western media believes any of it. But it does sow the seeds of disinformation in Russian news media, which is pretty relentlessly promoting the notion that Ukraine were involved, which again reduces the level of culpability, or at least the focus of culpability, on Putin and his government in not stopping it happen when they were warned, which they might, realistically have never been able to stop anyway. But it suits that purpose more than any other. So that's why I think that they're pushing this line so hard, just to deflect the fact that they didn't stop it and were warned.